Hello there friends, Cynthia here. Welcome to my quilt lab where I am working on this beautiful block of the month by Banyan Batiks of Northcott. It's called Solare. This is month number 12. Month number 12 has 2 blocks. Let me just move this out of the way. The first block is a star, an 8-pointed star. This is only 1/4 of it, so we're making 4 of these. And then the next one should look pretty similar to something that we did earlier, and it's called the Roman stripe. There's 16 of these. This is month 12. There's still going to be a borders video and a finishing video, so we are really close to finishing this quilt. Let's dig in and see what month 12 has in store for us. Alright, so like I said, the first block is called the 8-pointed star, and we're doing templates again, or if you've watched any of my videos, I turned these templates into a paper piecing version. You'll see that there's 2 pages of templates, one for each side, so they're mirrored. S, W, and V, U for one side, V, X, and T for the other. So let's just talk about those real quick. If you want to get some acrylic, or if you want to print these out and use these paper pieces, you're going to be making 4 of each of these, 4 of each sides, and then we put it in a block like this and we put it together, or you can turn it into a paper piecing by cutting them out, gluing them together, taping them together, and making them look something like this. So you can see there's 1/2 there and 1/2 there. Now let me just talk about this for a second, because if you've done any paper piecing, you're going to, if you haven't realized, paper piecing is actually the mirrored version of it. So if we paper piece this using the exact same letters that we have, it's going to be opposites. The yellow is going to be here. The blues are still going to be the same, but these 2 are going to be switched as well. So before we can paper piece, we have to redistribute the colors. And you can see that I've done this on the one here. I've left the paper on. I changed the letters. So let me just pull it aside. So the X goes to the outside, the T goes to the inside. So you can see I switched them. And then the V and the S get switched out too. And if that's still a little confusing, you can write down what the colors are supposed to be when you flip it over, so that it goes the correct way instead of opposite. So I put cream here, DB is for the dark blue, R is for that rust color, O is for that orange color, and there's that R again for that rust color. If you don't mirror them, it just means that your block is going to look opposite. So the colors are going to rotate in the other way. Not a big deal if that happens. It's not a huge issue, but I do want to point this out, that this is the first time we have had to actually change the colors on the back of the paper piecing. Every other one, they've been symmetrical. So it's like been the triangle with a dark triangle in the center and then 2 wing pieces, but it's the same colors on either side, so it hasn't been an issue. This one, it will be an issue. So remember, if you're going to do the paper piecing, you need to trade out the colors so that when you flip it over, it's the correct way, because this is what it looks like right there, right? So when you flip it over, it looks like this. I hope that makes sense. It's not a huge deal if you screw up, but if you want to take a second, zoom in, and take a write down what I'm doing here, that I've traded out the letters so that I put the right fabric on the right parts. Okay, so let's just talk a quick bit about that paper piecing. I took those templates and I taped them all together, and then I made photocopies of it on this beautiful foundation paper piecing. This is a Carol Doak. I'll put that link in the description below. You can use regular office paper, not a big issue. This is just sort of like a paper newspaper print, so it rips really easily when you go to take the paper off the end. So you're going to cut these out and we're going to piece them on. You'll see I haven't labeled these yet as far as what colors are going on here, but I have numbered which pieces I'm doing first. So this is going to be my first piece and second piece, so I'm going to do that seam first, and then I'm going to do this seam. Same thing on the other side. When I go to this side, there's 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do this seam first, and then I'm going to do this seam. So let me just jump right in. I'll maybe take some pictures, or maybe I'll film this. We'll see what happens, see how the camera likes me today, and let's dig into this paper piecing. Let's go. So I just want to take a quick moment to talk about cutting the fabric, and I'm just showing the templates and the fabric for W and X. That's fabric number 2. So when you cut out your templates, you're going to place them on the fabric and you're going to cut them out this way. You'll see that there's 2 opposites on each side. You see how the angles are going up the other way because they're, you know, they do the opposite sides. It's that dark blue color. So if you're doing the paper piecing, I kind of did something similar in that I cut the pieces into 4 quarters, and then I sliced them diagonally, 2 going one way and 2 going the other, so that I would have more than enough fabric for the paper piecing part of the adventure, as it were. You'll do the same thing with all of the other fabrics. They're all triangular-ish pieces, and you can tell from just this one piece that it is more than enough for that paper piecing. So don't worry about your fabric. I just wanted to show this out. Let's get back to the paper piecing and put these blocks together. All right, so let's just do 1/2 of this, what will be a quarter of the overall block. I'm going to start with the first 2 pieces and this seam first. So I need that dark blue and orange. So there it is right there. I've already pre-folded everything. You know I like to pre-fold everything, so it makes it easier for me when I go to piece. I'm just going to lay this down, making sure I have enough, and I have plenty of fabric. I'll grab a couple of pins. I'm going to pin that right there real quick. I'll grab the other piece and also line it up. If your fabric isn't straight right now, you can grab your ruler or add a quarter ruler and trim off any excess that you need. There we go. Oop, I missed a part right there. There we go. Lots of fabric. I'm going to throw another pin in so I go through all 3 layers. And I'll move this one over here. Keeping those pins far away from where I'm going to be stitching because I don't want my needle to hit them. I'm actually going to start right here at that center, and I'm going to stitch all the way out. I'm going to go all the way past that seam allowance too. I'm going to shorten my stitch length because that's going to make more holes. So when I go to tear the paper off, it'll make it easier. So let me take this to the machine and I'll be right back. All right, so there's that first seam. There it is right there, nice and short. We're going to do this last piece, so we're going to fold this seam back. And we can trim away all this extra. You can add a quarter ruler, which I like to use when I'm doing paper piecing, or you can just do a regular ruler and add the quarter inch line up on that piece of paper. So that's extra. Now we can place that rust one, and you'll see it needs to be like this, right? So if I flip this over and put this up on top, and move it down a smidge, We want to make sure it's going to hit all of that fabric. See, there's the end of the quarter. Be careful that you don't place it over here, because you'll see there's the quarter right there. You want to make sure that all the fabric is going to cover the entire piece. All right, so I'm going to throw a couple pins in. So it goes through all of those pieces of fabric. And now I can take this and do this seam, and I'm going to go all the way across both seam allowances. Be right back. All right, so there's the 3 pieces all done. Now we can just cut away all this extra stuff. So grab a ruler. We want to make sure we leave that outside seam allowance in. And we're going to just trim off all those extra pieces of fabric. And we're going to pay attention to the little dog ears too. You want to keep those lines in as well, because they'll help when we go to piece it together at the end. All right, so there's 1/2 of the quarter. I guess that's 1/8. Don't forget to do the other half. And we'll come back after this one's finished and we'll talk about putting them together. To the machine. All right, so you have your pieces. There they are, the paper. Leave the paper on for this next step, which is to put them together, because it's going to make lining them up way easier, because you have the little points to aim your pens through. So this is what I do. I'm going through the little tippy top of that triangle, and let's say if I put them together, if I have done everything correctly, when I put it through right here, it should go through the point on the other side too. Let's find out. Isn't that magical? All right, so I'm going to leave that pin right there. I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. You see how those dog ears come in real handy by leaving them on? All right, so we put it through the little point of that triangle. Turn it over. Yay! Another gold star. And you can do that here as well, where that line is. See, if I open it up a little bit, you can see how the 2 folds meet each other. And I'm going to put it through just next to that seam over here. And if I turn it over, there it is, going through that line. If you want to throw another one in just for good measure, anytime you put a pin in, it should go on the line. It should go through the other line on the other side. Ouch. Hey, pins are sharp. There we go. All right. So you're going to take this to the sewing machine and you're going to stitch all along that line, all the way through. Even put all the way through that seam allowance as well, right there and right over here. And when you're finished, you should have something that looks a little like this. Here's a finished one. Now what I did is I took this to the iron and I actually opened up this seam and pressed it down. I'll just do a quick little finger press right here to show you. I gave this a nice press down. Here, here's the finished one that's open. And then you take the paper off. I did the center first. And because we did a shorter stitch length, it should be easier for you to peel those off. If it doesn't, and you have a little bit of paper sneaking through, once you get everything off, you can just take a little pin and you can take the rest off. So let me just do this side real quick and I'll show you what I do. I take this bottom piece off. We take them off in reverse order that we seamed, that we stitched. So there's number 3, and then the outside. Score it with your fingernail if you can. And then the inside. If I just give it a little pull, it pulls away. All right, so there's still a couple little pieces of paper. I just take a little pin and just kind of scrape them away. Doop, doop, doop. All right, so do that to each one of the 4. Give it a nice good press afterwards so that you have 4 of these. And then we put them together in rows and in the block. So let me go tear off all this paper, do the last bit of stitching, and I'll be back in just a moment. To the machine. All right, so there's the 4 quarters. Now we need to put this all together to make the 8-pointed star. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do rows. And we have lots of things that we can use as demarcation points when we go to pin things in and take it to the sewing machine. So we're doing this seam right here. Make sure that you're laying that fold right on top of itself so that we can get a nice point. And you'll notice that if as long as you did all the dog ears, you cut everything the same way, it should match up very nicely. So I'm going to put a pin in there, and I'm going to come down here and make sure that this fold is laying on top of it, of the other one. I'm going to throw a pin in there just to hold it in place. And I'll take that to the sewing machine and do those 2 sides. I'm going to open up the seams again, just like I did with the 2 paper piecing parts. And then when we come it back, it's the exact same thing. You're going to throw a pin in at those 3 points to do the last block. So let's take this to the sewing machine, and I'll be back in just a moment. All right, there it is, all nicely pressed. Look at my pretty center. I'm so proud of it. Let me turn this over so you can see the back. Know that I pressed all my regular stitch seams open. So let me just talk about that a second. If you are doing the template version instead of my paper piece version, the instructions will tell you to open up all of the seams. It's one of the few times in this pattern where the authors tell you which way to press the seams. And I don't press seams open when I'm paper piecing, but I did all the other ones. And it's really important to press them open because that's a lot of bulkiness there in the center. And it just lays nicer, flatter there in the center if you press your seams open. Give this a nice good press. Maybe use some best press or some starch. And it should measure out to 12.5 inches square. So it's one of the corner pieces. Let's move on to the second block, which is the Roman star. No, the Roman stripe. 8-star Roman stripe. Let's go. All right, so here's the Roman stripe. We're making 16 of these, and if you look at the cutting instructions, both in that blue fabric 2 and the fabric 3, which is kind of that creamier blue, you're going to be making a bunch of big squares. It tells you to cut 8 squares at 6 7/8. These are going to be half square triangles, 2 each. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I don't like 7/8 with my half square triangles. So I bumped it up to 7 inches square. Just a little easier, plus it gives me some wiggle room when I go to trim down. Let me put this one on top. Here we go. So we're turning these 2 into half square triangles first and foremost. Going to line everything up there on a pretty center line. I use my entire mat when I'm cutting, so let me grab a pencil. All right, and I'm going to grab my handy dandy little half square triangle ruler. It's called a quick quarter. You should see mine has a slot in the center. There are other ones out there that don't have that slot in the center, and I use this ruler anytime I'm making half square triangles. No waste half square triangles. So I'm putting that slotted point right on that middle diagonal line, and that's going to become the cutting line after I do my stitching. And then I do a little draw on either side. So this is 1/4 of an inch away from that center line, that center dashed line. I'm going to do these 2 stitches, a full stitch here, a full stitch there. Lighten it up, there we go. And then I'm going to cut it down the center, and we're going to press it open so that we make 2 squares that look like this, one full cream size and the other half is that blue. So let's go do this, and then we'll talk about this little corner piece when we get back to the machine. Alrighty, so we got our 2 squares, half square triangles, and if you bumped yours up to 7 inches, you will need to square down to the 6.5 finished size. So let's square this down really quickly. This is my favorite tool when I'm squaring down right underneath. It is a rotating mat, and I love it so much because it means it makes things, just makes life easier. And we like to make life as easy as possible. So I'm using this diagonal line that goes right down the middle, and I'm lining up my diagonal of my square with it, making sure that I'm going over the edge a little bit because I'm going to be squaring down to that 6.5. Let me grab my rulers and my blade. Now, if you don't have a rotating mat, just be careful when you're picking it up and moving it around. I love the rotating mat because it means I don't have to touch the fabric. I can just move the ruler. If you don't have one of these, I'll put a link in the description below. But it is a nice little tool to have around, especially if you do a lot of half square triangles. You see how much I love having doing it, bump it up just 1/8 of an inch because it gives me that wiggle room so that I know I'm going to have a nice square, half square triangle when I'm finished. Okay. So I'll do that other one as well, but before I let you go, let's talk about that last piece. Fabric 16, it's going to tell you to cut 16 3.5 squares, and you can see I've already drawn a diagonal line down the center of that square. So now that the big one is squared down to 6.5, all we got to do is line this up in the corner. Right there, I'm going to throw a pin in. And we're going to do this stitch from corner to corner. That way when we cut away this extra piece, this will fold open nicely and it'll get that little cute little corner piece done. All right, so let me take this to the machine. I'll be right back and then we'll be all finished. To the machine. All right, here we're back. We're going to trim away the excess. And then we just press this nice open. Give it a nice press. I'll just do a finger press real quick. And there we go. Another one to add to the pile. Remember, you are making 16 of these. It's nice to kind of end our month on a nice, easy block. But hey, there is still more to come. I have a borders video coming out in about a week or so, and then we're going to be finishing up this quilt with a finishing video as well. And we'll talk all through all those details when those weeks arrive. Keep working at it. Thanks for visiting me in my quilt lab. If you found this informational, give me a little thumbs up, and I'll see you in a week or so with the border video and then the finishing video after that. Have a good one. See you later. Bye-bye.